Hi, I'm Glenda, and this is the Mr. Rogers Project. Won't you be my neighbor? If you want to follow along, you can stream these episodes on Amazon Prime. So, this episode is from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Volume 1. Yeah. And the original air date for this episode is February 18th, 1968. This episode is in black and white. The synopsis. Mr. Rogers opens with his iconic introduction, "It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood." He asks if we know someone who is always in a hurry. This is in reference to Mr. McFeely, who delivers the neighborhood's mail. Mr. McFeely is always working towards a speedy delivery, leaving him little time to spend with Mr. Rogers. The main focus of this episode revolves around change. In fact, it's the theme for the week. Fred spreads out a theme over the course of 1 week, and I think that's to provide a sense of dependability, but also to dive deeply into a topic. Lady Elaine has moved things around in the neighborhood of make-believe. Mr. Rogers dives into the feelings around getting used to new things. The conclusion is to try to welcome change, and that change is something to get excited about. Mr. Rogers also sings "It's You I Like." In this episode, Mr. Rogers also focuses on learning to write in lampshade hats. My observations, connections, and reflections. Mr. McFeely is a character that Fred uses to show what it's like and how it feels to have someone in your life who's always in a hurry. It doesn't feel good when I observe people behaving this way towards me. It sometimes makes me feel that what I have to say isn't important, that I'm replaceable to that person or somehow insignificant. I also know that I too rush sometimes, and when I do, I make people feel like they don't matter to me. I never have intentions of hurting others when I rush. I think that people rush when they are ruminating rather than being aware of those around them. I also think that Fred is trying to tell us that we need to slow down in order to metabolize our feelings. I want to rush less. Mr. Rogers has a growth mindset. We see this when he talks about reading and writing. He says, "If you don't read and write yet, you will someday." Yet, underscoring the possibility that one has the ability to change their skill set. I think it's also a big picture message. When change comes to us, we can choose to change how we respond to it. I believe how we respond is a skill to be developed. We have to remember that some of our neighbors are more or less skillful in this area. People have different responses to change, and it's our own mindset that helps us decide if a change is a positive or a negative event. For example, King Friday gets angry when things change. X the owl gets excited and curious, choosing to see change as an adventure, a treasure hunt, while Henrietta Pussycat feels nervous, scared, and shy. When Mr. Rogers pays a visit to Mrs. Russellite's house, they discuss turning lampshades into hats. This shows us that change can be a welcome opportunity for growth and creativity. Sometimes things simply change. It's just a part of life, which means change is completely normal and natural. What would happen if things didn't change? If pain never ended because things didn't change, would we look at change in the same way? Would possibility, hope, and faith exist if there was no change in our universe? What a grim place to live. Mr. Rogers also uses this opportunity to normalize the traits that we judge in others as eccentric. His message is, it's our differences that make each person unique and lovable. If you want to be a good neighbor, strive for being welcoming and accepting. Avoid pushing away and don't dehumanize them due to things that you judge as eccentric. This radical acceptance of self as you are is further reflected in his song, "I Like You As You Are." Mr. Rogers closes the program by singing the Tomorrow song. a ritual he performs at the end of each program. I believe he does this to provide structure, which develops trust with his young TV viewers. From this episode, I am reminded that I can respond to change in many ways, and I won't respond to change in the same way every time. This is true for everyone. Each and every one of your neighbors responds differently to change than you do. They are also inconsistent with how they respond to change. I feel like I can be more like King Friday when it comes to change. I can get angry when things happen that I don't expect or plan for. I feel angry when change happens that's out of my control, or change is a result due to a poor choice I have made. I feel that I've finally started to make progress towards this response to change. However, it still pops out from time to time. I think it all depends on how well I'm taking care of myself and where my head is at during the time of the change. It comes down to my mindset. Sometimes I respond like Henrietta. I feel scared or nervous, but not necessarily shy. Perhaps this is my response when I'm avoiding change. I think sometimes I have this response to change when I just don't know what the result or outcome will be. Fear of the unknown. Sometimes I welcome change as X the owl does. That is, seeing it as a potential for an adventure, meeting change with excitement. Daniel Striped Tiger tries to meet change with happiness, laughter, and by simply doing the best that he can. He also suggests that we should make the best of a funny day. I think I strive to be like Daniel, but it doesn't always happen that way. Perhaps gratitude is required to meet change with joy. When I respond like King Friday, I like this the least, and it's something I'm working on, and I want to change it about myself. Mr. Rogers leads by example, saying, I like new things when it comes to embracing change. I think it's a good indication that you're reflecting on something deeply when you start to ask yourself questions. So when questions arise during my reflections, I'll include them in my post. Perhaps I'll come back at a later date and reflect on my own questions. If I do, I'll add those in the comments. So questions for myself. Why do I feel angry when I'm not in control? Why do I rush so much? And then I've got questions for you. Feel free to answer them in the comments. Do you respond to change like Henrietta, King Friday, X the Owl, Mr. Rogers, or Daniel Striped Tiger? And my last question is, won't you be my neighbor?